So like let's say we had y equals 3x plus 1. So what we've been doing is that we have been saying, okay, well let's look at our x values and see what our corresponding y values are. So let's just pick some points here. Let's do -1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. So if I take -1 and I plug it into my function, I'm going to have 3 times -1 plus 1. So that's going to be -3 plus 1. So that's going to give us -2. If I plug in 0, I'm going to have 0 times 3 plus 1. So that's going to give me 1. If I plug 1 in here, 3 times 1 plus 1 is 4. 2, that's going to be 7. 3, that's going to give me 10. Alright, so let's look at plotting those points on here. So this will be our x-axis, this will be our y-axis. See. And we'll just have each of these little tick marks represent a 1. Okay, and then let's do some negative ones down here as well. Alright, so when I plug in -1, I'm going to have -2, so that's going to be the point -1, -2. If I plug in 0, I'm going to have the point 1. At 1, I'm going to have the point 4. And then at 3, I'm going to have the point 10. Let's make this a little bit straighter. So what we want to talk about today is how can I graph this function here, on my calculator. So on calculator. So I'm going to open up my calculator here. And your calculator might look a little bit different, but this is a TI-89 Silver Edition. What we're going to do is we are going to graph x or y equals 3x plus 1. So we are going to go over here to this y equals button right up here in the top, the very top left hand. We're going to click on that. Well, we have to turn on first. Click on this. And you're going to see that it has a y1. So that's going to be our y. So this is going to correspond to this y. So we're going to have y equals, and what do we want? We want y equals 3x plus 1. So let's type that in. So we're going to have 3. And then we have an alphabetical x right here. However, I strongly suggest that you use this button here. This is our variable button. It's going to automatically put in the variable that we need here. So 3x plus 1. Alright, and then I always hit enter just to make sure that I've saved that entry. And now when we're done, before we go and hit this graph button, let's hit window. Let's hit window. So what window is going to do for us is it's going to let us set up the dimensions of the graph we're going to see. So let's see, let's make our min, let's have it line up with this. So our minimum x value here was -1. So let's make this one -2, just so we can get a little bit more of the graph. And here, our x max, or the maximum value on our x-axis, well, on here we said 3, so why don't we make this 4, just so we can get a little bit more in the graph. Now, what does this XSCL stand for? Well, that's our scale. That's what each of your tick marks represent. So let's make each of our tick marks represent 1. Our y min, let's see, what was our minimum value here? Well, our y min here was -2. So let's make this one -3. And our x max, well, here our biggest y value was 10. So why don't we make the biggest y value that shows up on the calculator, why don't we just go ahead and make that 11. And our y scale, let's make that 1 as well. And we'll just save our resolution. Okay. We'll just leave the rest of this alone. Now, what we can do is we can hit graph. So push your graph button. And look, it drew a straight line. How nice is that? This beautiful straight line. And as you can see, if we look at these tick marks, we have -2, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And same thing for the y. So let's see how these tick marks change if we change our scale. So let's go back to window and see this x scale. Let's go ahead and scroll down. And let's change that to 0.5. Let's change that to 0.5. And go back here to your graph button. Now our graph looks the same, but now these tick marks count off by half. So it would be 0, 1/2, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, and 4. Alright, so that is how you graph on your calculator. We can also use these zoom buttons. If I hit this zoom button, what these do is that they're going to zoom in or zoom out. So for example, if we wanted to zoom in and get a closer look at the picture, we could do that, enter. And then this is going to say, see this blinking dot? That's asking us, what do you want to zoom in on? Oops. It's asking us, what do you want to zoom in on? What is it that where do you want to zoom in? So let's say that we want to zoom in maybe right here. Maybe we're interested in what's happening by the y-axis. So you're going to click over and then click down using these arrow buttons. And now that we're centered, right where we want to zoom in, go ahead and hit enter. And we get a closer view of what we're looking at. Same thing, if maybe we wanted to zoom out, we can go here and zoom out. And same thing, that's going to blink and ask you where it wants to center it. And there you go. And it's really fun to just kind of go into your calculator and play around with these and see how each of them changes the graph. Right? It's just fun. So just go ahead, play around with your calculator, see what you can do.